Shalom, welcome to Tactical Torah. I am Heath Hayes. Today is day 80 of Read the Bible in a Year. We are in Judges, reading chapters 8, 9, and 10. One moment. Alright, let's get started with chapter 8. And the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this you have done to us by not calling us when you went to fight with Midian?" And they contended with him sharply. And he said to them, "What have I done as compared with you? Are the gleanings of Ephraim not better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? Elohim has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeeb. And what was I to do as compared with you?" And when he had said that their rage was toward him, and when he had said that, their rage toward him subsided. There we go. And Gideon and 300 men who were with him came to the Jordan, passing over, weary yet pursuing. And he said to the men of Sukkot, "Please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are weary. And I am pursuing Zebah and Salmunna, sovereigns of Midian." But the leaders of Sukkot said, "Are the hands of Zebah and Salmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" And Gideon said, "Because of this, when Yahweh has given Zebah and Salmunna into my hands, I shall tear your flesh with thorns of the wilderness and with briars." And he went up from there to Penuel and spoke with them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkot had answered him. So he spoke also to the men of Penuel, saying, "When I come back in peace, I shall break down this tower." And Zebah and Salmunna were at Karkor, and their armies with them, about 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east. Now those who had already fallen were 120,000 men who drew the sword. And Gideon went up by way of those who dwell in tents on the east of Nobah and Yogbaha. And he struck the camp while the camp was at ease, and Zebah and Salmunna fled, and he pursued them and captured the two sovereigns of Midian, Zebah and Salmunna, and shuttered the entire army. And Gideon, son of Joash, returned from battle from the ascent of Heres, and captured a youth of the men of Sukkot, and questioned him. So the youth wrote down for him the leaders of Sukkot and its elders, 77 men. And he came to the men of Sukkot and said, "See, Zebah and Salmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Salmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to the men of your army who are weary? Give bread to your men who are weary." And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars with them. He taught the men of Sukkot a lesson. And he broke down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. And he said to Zebah and Salmunna, "How were the men whom you killed at Tabor?" So they answered, "They were like you, each one looked like the son of a sovereign." And he said, "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As Yahweh lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you." And he said to Yether, his firstborn, "Rise, kill them." But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Salmunna said, "Rise yourself and fall on us. For as a man is, so is his might." So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Salmunna, and took the crescent ornaments which were on their camels' necks, So the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you and your son, also your son's son, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon said to them, "I do not rule over you, nor does my son rule over you. Yahweh does rule over you." And Gideon said to them, "I have a request to make of you, that each of you give me the ring from his spoil," for they had rings of gold, because they were Ishmaelites. And they said, "We shall certainly give them." And they spread out a garment, and each man threw into it the ring from his spoil. And the weight of the gold rings that was requested was 1,700 pieces of gold, besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple robes which were on the sovereigns of Midian, and besides the chains that were around their camels' necks. And Gideon made it into a shoulder garment and set it up in his city, Ophrah. And all Israel went whoring after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his house. Thus Midian was humbled before the children of Israel, and they lifted their heads no more. And the land had rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon had 70 sons, who were his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine was in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he gave him the name Abimelech. And Gideon, son of Joash, died at a good old age, and was buried at the burial site of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezerites. And it came to be, when Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel again went whoring after the Baals, and made Baal-berith their mighty one. Thus the children of Israel did not remember Yahweh their Elohim, who had delivered them from the hands of all the enemies round about, nor did they show loving commitment to the house of Jerubbaal, Gideon, according to all the good which he did for Israel. Chapter 9. And Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem to his mother's brothers, and spoke with them, and with all the clan of the house of his mother's father, saying, "Please speak in the hearing of all the masters of Shechem, which is better for you, that 70 men, all the sons of Jerubbaal, rule over you, or that one man rule over you. And you shall remember that I am your own flesh and bone." And his mother's brothers spoke all these words concerning him in the hearing of all the masters of Shechem. And their heart inclined toward Abimelech, for they said, "He is our brother." And they gave him 70 pieces of silver from the house of Baal-berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless men, and they followed him. And he went to his father's house at Ophrah, and killed his brothers, the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, because he hid himself. And all the masters of Shechem gathered together, and all of Beth Millo. And they went and made Abimelech sovereign beside the terebinth tree at the post that was in Shechem. And they informed Jotham, and he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim, and lifted his voice and cried out and said to them, "Hear me, you masters of Shechem, and let Elohim hear you." The trees went forth to anoint sovereign over them. And they said to the olive tree, "Reign over us." And the olive tree said to them, "Shall I leave my oil, with which they esteem mighty ones and men, and go sway over trees?" And the trees said to the fig tree, "Come reign over us." And the fig tree said to them, "Shall I leave my sweetness and my good fruit, and go sway over trees?" Then the trees said to the vine, "Come reign over us." And the vine said to them, "Come on. There we go. Shall I leave my new wine, which rejoices mighty ones and men, and go sway over trees?" Then all the trees said to the bramble, "Come reign over us." And the bramble said to the trees, "If in truth you anoint me as sovereign over you, come take shelter in my shade, but if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. And now if you acted in truth and integrity in setting up Abimelech to reign, and if you have acted well with Jerubbabel and his house, and have done to him as his hands did to you, for my father fought for you and risked his life and delivered you out of the hand of Midian, but you have risen up against my father's house today and killed his 70 sons on one stone and set up Abimelech, the son of his female servant, to reign over the masters of Shechem, because he is your brother. If then you have acted in truth and integrity with Jerubbabel and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the masters of Shechem and Beth Millo, and let fire come out from the masters of Shechem and from Beth Millo and devour Abimelech." Then Jotham ran away and fled, and went to Beer and dwelt there, for fear of Abimelech his brother. And Abimelech governed Israel 3 years. And Elohim sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the masters of Shechem, and the masters of Shechem acted treacherously against Abimelech, in order that the violence done to the 70 sons of Jerubbabel might come, and their blood be laid on Abimelech, their brother, who killed them, and on the masters of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to kill his brothers. And the masters of Shechem set men in ambush against him on the tops of the mountains, and they robbed all who passed over by them that way. And it was reported to Abimelech, and Gaal, son of Ebed, came with his brothers and passed over to Shechem, and the masters of Shechem put their trust in him, and went out into the fields, and gathered their vineyards, and trod out, and held a feast. They went into the house of their mighty one, and ate and drank, and cursed Abimelech. And Gaal, son of Ebed, said, "Who is Abimelech, and who is Shechem, that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Jerubbabel, and is not Zebul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem. But why should we serve him? If only his people were under my hand, then I would remove Abimelech." And he said to Abimelech, "Increase your army and come out." And when Zebul, the governor of the city, heard the words of Gaal, son of Ebed, his displeasure burned. And he sent messengers to Abimelech by deceit, saying, "See, Gaal, son of Ebed, and his brothers have come to Shechem, and see, they are besieging the city against you. And now, get up by night, you and the people who are with you, and lie in wait in the field. And it shall be, as soon as the sun is up in the morning, then rise early and rush on the city, and see, when he and the people who are with him come out against you, you shall do to them as your hand finds to do." And Abimelech and all the people who were with him rose up by night and laid wait against Shechem in 4 companies. Now Gaal, son of Ebed, went out and stood at the entrance of the city gate, and Abimelech and the people who were with him rose from lying in wait. And when Gaal saw the people, he said to Zebul, "See, people are coming out from the tops of mountains." But Zebul said to him, "You are seeing the shadows of mountains like men." And Gaal spoke again and said, "See, people are coming down from the high part of the land." And another company is coming from the diviners terebinth tree, from the diviner's terebinth tree. And Zebul said to him, Now, where is your mouth with which you said, Who is Abimelech that we should serve him? Are not these people whom you despised? I beg you, go out and fight them now. So Gaal went out, leading the masters of Shechem, and fought Abimelech. And Abimelech pursued him, and he fled him. And many fell wounded up to the entrance of the gate. And Abimelech stayed at Aramah. And Zebul drove out Gaal and his brothers, so that they would not dwell in Shechem. And it came to be the next day that people went out into the field, that they informed Abimelech. And he took his people and divided them into 3 companies, and laid in wait in the field, and looked and saw the people coming out of the city. And he rose against them and struck them. And Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood at the entrance of the gate of the city. And the other 2 companies rushed upon all who were in the fields and struck them. And Abimelech fought against the city that day, and captured the city, and killed the people who were in it. And he broke down the city and sowed it with salt. And all the masters of the tower of Shechem had heard that, and entered the stronghold of the house of El-Berith. And it was reported to Abimelech that all the masters of the tower of Shechem were gathered together. So Abimelech went up to Mount Salmon. And he and all the people who were with him, and Abimelech, took an axe in his hands, and cut down the branch from the trees, and took it and laid it on his shoulder. Then he said to the people who were with him, What have you seen me do? Hurry, do as I have done. And all the people likewise cut down each one his own branch, and followed Abimelech, and put them against the stronghold, and set the stronghold on fire above them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. Abimelech then went to Thebez, and he encamped against Thebez and captured it. However, there was a strong tower in the city, and all the men and the women and all the masters of the city fled there and shut themselves in, and went up to the top of the tower. And Abimelech came to the tower and fought against it, and approached the door of the tower to burn it with fire. But a certain woman dropped an upper millstone on the head of Abimelech, and crushed his skull. He then immediately called the young man his armor-bearer, and said to him, Draw your sword and kill me, lest men say of me, A woman killed him. And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, each one went to his own place. Thus did Elohim repay the evil of Abimelech, which he had done to his father, to kill his 70 brothers. And all the evil of the men of Shechem Elohim turned back on their own heads, and the curse of Jotham, son of Jerubbaal, came on them. Chapter 10. And after Abimelech there rose Tola, son of Puah, son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, to save Israel. And he dwelt in Shamir in the mountains of Ephraim, and he ruled Israel 23 years, then died and was buried in Shamir. And after him rose Yair, a Gileadite, and he ruled Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys, and they had 30 towns, which are called Havoth Yair to this day, which are in the land of Gilad. And Yair died and was buried in Kimon. And the children of Israel again did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths, and the mighty ones of Aram, and the mighty ones of Sidon. and the mighty ones of Moab, and the mighty ones of the children of Ammon, and the mighty ones of the Philistines, and forsook Yahweh and did not serve him. Therefore the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the children of Ammon. And they crushed and oppressed the children of Israel that year. For 18 years all the children of Israel who were beyond the Jordan, in the land of the Amorites in Gilead. And the children of Ammon passed over the Jordan to fight against Judah, and against Benjamin, and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel had great distress. And the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh, saying, We have sinned against you, because we have both forsaken our Elohim and served the Baals. So Yahweh said to the children of Israel, Was it not from the Mitzrites, and from the Amorites, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines that I saved you? And the Sidonians and Amalek and Maon oppressed you. And you cried out to me, and I saved you from their hand. But you have forsaken me, and served other mighty ones. Therefore I do not save you again. Go and cry out to the mighty ones which you have chosen, and let them save you in your time of distress. And the children of Israel said to Yahweh, We have sinned. Do to us whatever is good in your eyes. Only deliver us today, please. So they put away the foreign mighty ones from their midst, and served Yahweh. And his being was grieved with the trouble of Israel. Then the children of Ammon were called together and encamped in Gilead, and the children of Israel gathered together and encamped in Mizpah. And the people, the heads of Gilead, said to each other, Let the man who is first to fight against the children of Ammon be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. All right, that's it. Shalom.